I suspected my husband has been putting sleeping pills in my tea. That evening I poured it out while he stepped away and I pretended to fall asleep. But what I saw next left me dumbfounded. Hello everyone. Thank you for being here with me today. Before I begin my story, I'd love to know which city you're joining us from. Please feel free to share in the comments. Now, let me take you into this story. The silence in our master bedroom was heavy, pressing down on me like a physical weight. My heart was beating so violently against my ribcage that I was terrified the sound alone would give me away. I lay there in our king-sized bed, buried under the expensive Egyptian cotton sheets that my husband, Markus, had insisted we buy for our anniversary, and I focused every ounce of my willpower on one simple task: breathing. I had to keep my breath shallow, rhythmic, and slow. I had to mimic the deep, comatose slumber of a woman who had just swallowed a powerful sedative. Because if I moved, if I flinched, if I showed even a flicker of consciousness, I knew with a chilling certainty that I wouldn't live to see the sunrise. Through the narrowest slits of my eyelashes, I watched the room. The moonlight filtered through the sheer curtains, casting long, ghostly blue shadows across the furniture. But the shadow moving near the bay window wasn't a trick of the light. It was my husband of 6 years. This wasn't the Markus everyone in our social circle adored. This wasn't the charming man who remembered every birthday, who brought me my special chamomile tea every single night without fail, or the man who held my hand at dinner parties and told me I was the most beautiful woman in the room. The figure crouching on the floor moved with a predatory silence, a cold, calculated precision that sent a spike of ice straight down my spine. He was on his knees near the antique radiator. I watched, my blood running cold, as he pulled a small, flat pry bar from the pocket of his silk pajama bottoms. He wedged it into the gap between the hardwood floorboards, the beautiful, dark oak floors I had picked out myself when we renovated this house 3 years ago. With a soft, almost imperceptible groan of wood against metal, he lifted a section of the floor. I wanted to scream. I wanted to sit bolt upright and demand to know what he was doing destroying our home in the middle of the night. But a voice in my head, a primal survival instinct I didn't know I possessed until this week, screamed at me to stay freezing still. Don't move, Brenda. Don't breathe. Play dead. He reached into the dark cavity beneath the floor and pulled out a metal box. It looked like a standard fireproof lockbox, the kind you might keep petty cash or social security cards in, but the way he handled it made my stomach churn. He treated it with reverence, almost like a religious artifact. He set it down gently on the rug and clicked the latch open. Even in the dim light, I could see the contents, and what I saw shattered the last fragments of my denial. Stacks of cash. Thick bundles of $100 bills wrapped in rubber bands, creating a small fortress of money inside the box. There had to be at least $50,000 there. But it wasn't the money that made bile rise in my throat. It was the passports. There were at least 5 of them. I saw him flip through one, and for a split second, the flashlight beam from his phone illuminated the page. It was Markus's face in the photo, the same handsome jawline, the same charming smile, but the name next to it was definitely not Markus Vance. It was something longer, European maybe. He flipped to another one. A different name. Another one. Then came the photographs. He spread them out on the floor like a twisted game of solitaire. I squinted, straining my eyes in the darkness, trying to make out the images without widening my eyelids. They were pictures of women. Women who looked somewhat like me, middle-aged, well-dressed, dark hair, successful-looking. He picked one up, a photo of a woman smiling on the deck of a sailboat, and he traced her face with his thumb. It wasn't a gesture of affection, it was a gesture of ownership. Like a collector admiring a butterfly pinned to a board. Almost done, he whispered. His voice was barely audible, a low rumble that sounded nothing like his usual warm baritone. It was a flat, emotionless sound. Just a few more days, darling. Then the timeline is complete. The timeline? What timeline? He reached back into the box and pulled out a small glass vial and a syringe. The sight of the needle glinting in the moonlight nearly made me gasp. I had to bite the inside of my cheek so hard I tasted copper just to keep silent. He held the vial up to the light, admiring the clear liquid inside, a cruel, satisfied smile twisting his lips. It was a smile of pure malice, a smile that belonged to a stranger, not the man who had vowed to love and cherish me until death did us part. Suddenly, he froze. He turned his head sharply toward the bed. I shut my eyes tight, my lungs burning as I held my breath. I felt the mattress dip. He was leaning over me. I could smell his cologne, sandalwood and expensive scotch, a scent that used to comfort me but now smelled like danger. I felt his hand hover over my face, his warm breath fanning against my cheek. He was checking to see if the tea had done its work. He was checking to see if I was unconscious. "Good night, my little cash cow," he whispered into my ear. He stayed there for what felt like an eternity, watching me, analyzing me. I focused on limpness. I focused on being a corpse. Finally, the mattress shifted again as he stood up. I heard the soft click of the box closing, the scrape of the floorboard being pushed back into place, and the rustle of sheets as he climbed into his side of the bed. Within minutes, his breathing deepened into sleep. I lay there, staring into the darkness, tears streaming silently into my pillow, soaking the expensive cotton. I was lying next to a monster. And I knew, with terrifying clarity, that the few more days he mentioned was a countdown. A countdown to my murder. Before I tell you how I managed to survive the nightmare that was waiting for me, I need to take you back to where this all began. But first, I want to say thank you so much for tuning in. It means the world to me that you're here to listen to my story. Please, let me know in the comments which city or state you are watching from. I love seeing how far our community reaches. Now, let's go back 6 years, to the moment I made the biggest mistake of my life. 6 years ago, I was a different woman. I was Brenda, the grieving widow, floating through life in a haze of loneliness that no amount of money or professional success could cure. My first husband, Carl, had passed away from a massive heart attack after 25 years of marriage. We had built a beautiful life together, a successful interior design firm in Chicago, a portfolio of real estate assets, and a daughter, Sophie, whom we adored. But when Carl died, he took the structural integrity of my world with him. I was a house with a crumbled foundation, waiting to collapse. I was vulnerable. I see that now with painful clarity. I was a walking target with a vacancy sign on my heart and a substantial bank account. I met Markus at a charity auction for heart health awareness. It felt like fate at the time, but now I know he likely targeted that event specifically because of the demographic, wealthy widows honoring their late husbands. He was handsome in that rugged, silver fox kind of way, wearing a tuxedo that fit him perfectly. He outbid me on a vintage painting I didn't even really want, a moody seascape, then gifted it to me 5 minutes later with a charming smile. "A beautiful woman shouldn't leave empty-handed," he had said, his blue eyes twinkling with an intensity that made me blush like a schoolgirl. "Besides, that blue in the water matches your eyes perfectly." He told me he was an investment banker, semi-retired, looking for a quieter life after years of the Wall Street grind. He was attentive, listening to my stories about Carl with what looked like genuine empathy. He didn't shy away from my grief, he leaned into it. He brought me flowers not on holidays, but on random Tuesdays because I saw these lilies and thought of you. He swept me off my feet so fast I didn't even notice my feet weren't touching the ground anymore. It was love bombing in its textbook form, but I was too starved for affection to see the weapon hidden in the bouquet. We were married within 11 months. It was a whirlwind, a fairy tale. Or so I thought. Looking back, the red flags were there, painted over with expensive dinners and romantic getaways to Napa Valley. The isolation started slowly, almost imperceptibly, like a slow leak in a tire. It began with my daughter, Sophie. Sophie was 24 at the time, living in London for her master's degree in art history. She had flown home for the wedding, but she was hesitant about Markus from the moment they shook hands. "Mom, don't you think it's weird that he doesn't have any family at the wedding?" she had asked me while zipping up my ivory dress. "No parents, no siblings, not even a college buddy?" Who is this guy, really? He's a private man, honey, I had defended him, annoyed that she was ruining my happy day. He's an orphan, grew up in foster care. You know that. We are his family now. Please, don't be difficult. Markus played the part of the hurt stepfather perfectly. He would sigh after she returned to London and say, I just want Sophie to like me, Brenda. Maybe I should step back. Maybe I'm trying too hard. It hurts that she thinks I'm after your money. He made me feel like I had to protect him from my own daughter's skepticism. Slowly, the calls to London became less frequent. Markus would suggest we go out to dinner right when I usually Skyped her. Or he would accidentally forget to tell me she had called the landline. He planted little seeds of doubt in my mind. Sophie is always asking for money for her tuition, isn't she? Are you sure she's not just worried about her inheritance shrinking? It's ugly to say, darling, but money changes people. The word inheritance stung. I wanted to believe my daughter loved me for me, but Markus was so convincing. I just want to protect you, he'd say, massaging my shoulders after a long day. You're too generous, Brenda. People take advantage of that. Even family. Then came the financial control. It wasn't a hostile takeover, it was a rescue mission, or so he claimed. I had been managing the design firm and our investments alone since Carl died, and I was admittedly overwhelmed. The paperwork was a mountain I couldn't climb. Why are you paying those exorbitant fees to that accountant? Markus asked one evening, looking over my tax returns with a frown. Brenda, darling, this is what I do. I managed portfolios 10 times this size on Wall Street. Let me handle the headache. You should be focusing on your art, on your designs. Let me be your husband and take this burden off your shoulders. You look so tired. It sounded so sweet. So relief-inducing. I fired my accountant of 20 years the next week. Markus took over everything, the design firm's payroll, my personal savings, the investment accounts, even the deed to the house. I signed the power of attorney papers thinking I was signing away my stress. I remember sitting in the notary's office, pen hovering over the paper. For a second, my hand trembled. But Markus squeezed my knee under the table and smiled that reassuring smile. I've got you, he whispered. I signed. I didn't know I was handing him the keys to my coffin. For the first 5 years, things seemed fine. We traveled, we renovated the house, we lived a life of luxury. But then, about 3 months ago, the atmosphere in our home shifted. It wasn't something I could point to and say, there, that's wrong. It was a feeling. A coldness in the air. Markus was still polite, still brought me tea, still kissed me goodbye. But his eyes, they stopped smiling. He spent more time in his home office with the door locked, claiming he was handling complex market fluctuations. And then, I started getting sick. It started insidiously, with a brain fog so dense I felt like I was wading through wet cement every morning. I would wake up feeling heavier than when I went to bed, my limbs leaden, my mouth tasting like old pennies in ash. I would walk into a room and completely forget why I was there. I'd lose my keys, my glasses, even simple words would escape me in the middle of a sentence during client meetings. I remember one humiliating afternoon vividly. I was presenting a new concept to a high-profile client, a young tech millionaire who wanted his penthouse redesigned. I had the fabric swatches in my hand, velvet and silk, but when I opened my mouth to explain the color palette, nothing came out. My mind was a blank whiteboard. I stood there, stammering, sweating profusely, while the client looked at me with a mixture of confusion and pity. Mrs. Vance? Are you okay? He asked. I just need a moment, I whispered, my hands shaking so hard I dropped the swatches. Markus was right there when I got home, ready with a diagnosis before I even finished explaining what happened. Oh, Brenda, he said with a pitying look, patting my hand as he led me to the sofa. I was afraid of this. You forgot to turn the stove off again this morning, too. It's a good thing I was here. I think, maybe we should talk to someone. This looks like early onset dementia. Or maybe it's just the menopause hitting you hard. My mother went through this, she started losing her faculties in her early 50s. He said it so often that I started to believe him. I am getting old, I thought. I am losing my mind. I am becoming a burden. He became my nurse. Every night at 9 p.m. sharp, the ritual would begin. He would go to the kitchen, and I would hear the kettle whistle. He would return with his special blend of chamomile tea in my favorite blue ceramic mug. Drink up, he'd urge gently, watching me from the armchair opposite the sofa. His gaze was intense, unblinking. It has valerian root and melatonin. It will help you rest. You need your rest, darling. You look exhausted. Your skin is so gray. I was exhausted. I was sleeping 10, sometimes 12 hours a night, but waking up feeling like I had run a marathon in my sleep. The isolation tightened like a noose around my neck. I stopped going to the office because Markus told me the staff was whispering about my forgetfulness. Let me handle the clients, he said. You don't want to embarrass yourself again, do you? Stay home, work on your garden. Let me be the face of the business for a while. I stopped going to lunch with my girlfriends because I was too tired to drive, and Markus had subtly suggested that I wasn't safe behind the wheel anymore after he found a scratch on the bumper that I didn't remember causing. But the incident that really shook me, the first real crack in his gaslighting narrative, happened about a month ago. Sophie had called via video chat. It was a rare occasion, as Markus usually intercepted her calls, but he was in the shower. I answered, trying my best to look perky, slapping on blush to hide my pale skin. Mom, Sophie said, leaning into her camera, her brow furrowed with concern. You look really out of it. Your pupils are huge, Mom. And you're swaying. Are you okay? You're slurring your words. I'm fine, honey, I mumbled, though my tongue felt distinctively swollen and too big for my mouth. Just tired. Markus says it's the hormones. He's taking such good care of me. Markus says, Sophie snapped, her frustration boiling over. Mom, seriously. You look drugged. Have you seen a doctor? A real doctor, not one of Markus's country club friends? He gives me vitamins, I defended him weakly. And herbal tea. Herbal tea doesn't make your pupils dilate like saucers. Sophie yelled. Mom, listen to me. Before I could answer, the connection went dead. The screen went black. I looked up, confused, my reflexes slow, to see Markus standing by the router in the hallway, the power cord in his hand. He was dripping wet from the shower, a towel around his waist, his face a mask of calm menace. Internet's down again, he said calmly. I was talking to Sophie, I slurred, trying to stand up but stumbling back onto the couch. She was upsetting you, Brenda, he said, walking over and gently pushing me back down into the cushions. His grip was firm, bordering on painful. I could hear her shouting from the bathroom. You don't need that stress. Your blood pressure can't take it. She wasn't shouting, I whispered, tears leaking from my eyes. She was worried. Shoo, he soothed, stroking my hair. You're confused again. Paranoia is a symptom, you know. She was screaming at you. It's okay. I'm here. I'll protect you from everyone. Even your ungrateful daughter. He went to the kitchen and returned a few minutes later with the blue ceramic mug. The steam curled up, smelling of flowers and honey, and something bitter underneath. Here, he said, pressing the warm mug into my trembling hands. Drink this. It will help you forget the stress. Just drink. I drank it. Like a good, obedient wife, I drank every drop. And 20 minutes later, the world faded into blackness. But there were cracks in his perfect control. Little things that didn't add up. Things my confused brain latched onto in moments of clarity. One morning, I woke up to find my laptop sitting on the vanity table. It was closed. But when I touched it, the metal casing was warm. Hot, actually. Like it had been running high-performance software all night. I never used my laptop at night. I barely used it at all anymore since Markus took over the business. Markus? I asked at breakfast, trying to keep my voice casual. Did you use my computer last night? He didn't even look up from his newspaper. No, darling. Why would I? I have my own. You probably left it running. You forget to shut things down, remember? You left the oven on last week. You forget. That was his mantra. But I knew I hadn't used it. And I knew the password to my laptop was different from his. Or at least, I thought it was. That warmth on the aluminum case was the spark that ignited a tiny flame of suspicion in my gut. A flame that whispered, "You are not crazy. You are not sick. Something is happening to you." And that flame led me to make the most terrifying decision of my life. I was going to see a doctor. And I wasn't going to tell Markus. Getting out of the house without Markus knowing was a military operation. He usually played golf on Tuesday mornings at the club, a 4-hour window where I was supposedly resting. I waited by the window, peering through the blinds, until his sleek black Audi pulled out of the driveway and turned the corner. My heart was racing as I scrambled to get dressed. I didn't dare take my own car. Markus had installed a safety GPS tracker on my phone and synced it to my vehicle, claiming it was in case I got lost during one of my episodes. I left my phone on the kitchen counter, turned on a gardening podcast to play loudly to simulate my presence for the Alexa devices, and ran out the back door. I cut through the neighbor's hedge, scratching my arms, and called a frantic Uber from the corner store 2 blocks away. I went to see Dr. Evans. He had been our family physician for 20 years, the man who treated Sophie's chickenpox and Carl's high blood pressure. But Markus had insisted we switch to a concierge doctor named Dr. Eris, a man I suspected was more of a golf buddy than a medical professional. Dr. Evans was old school, thorough, and owed Markus nothing. I sat on the crinkly paper of the exam table, my hands shaking so badly I had to sit on them to stop the vibration. The sterile smell of the office, usually comforting, felt suffocating. "Brenda," Dr. Evans said, walking in and looking at me over his spectacles. His expression went from professional to horrified in a second. "My God. You've lost 20 pounds since I last saw you a year ago. And your skin, you look jaundiced." "I don't know what's wrong," I whispered, tears pricking my eyes. "My husband says it's menopause. Or dementia. I feel foggy. All the time. I just need to know if my brain is dying, doctor. Please tell me the truth." He frowned, a deep crease appearing between his brows. He grabbed his stethoscope. "Let's run a full panel. Blood, urine, cognitive test. Everything. I'm not liking your heart rate, Brenda. It's erratic." I paid in cash, money I had siphoned from the grocery budget over weeks, tucked inside a hollowed-out book in the library. I couldn't use the credit cards. Markus saw every transaction alert on his phone. "I need the results fast, doctor. Please. I can't let him know I was here. I'll put a rush on it. Call me tomorrow morning from a safe number." "Brenda, are you safe at home?" I don't know," I admitted. The next 24 hours were agony. I had to pretend everything was normal. I drank the tea that night, but I managed to spit half of it into a napkin when Markus turned to change the channel on the TV. I still felt groggy, a heavy blanket over my mind, but not the complete blackout I was used to. I realized with horror just how potent the dose must be if half a cup could still knock me sideways. The next morning, while Markus was in the shower, I used the landline in the guest room, the dusty one we never used, to call Dr. Evans. "Brenda," his voice was grim. "Urgent. I need you to listen to me very carefully. Are you sitting down?" "Yes," I gripped the phone cord, my knuckles white. "Are you taking any prescription medication for anxiety or sleep? Anything I don't know about?" "No," I said. "Just vitamins Markus gives me. And herbal tea. Your blood work shows extremely high levels of benzodiazepines and a sedative called flunitrazepam. Rohypnol, Brenda. That's the date rape drug. And arsenic. Trace amounts, but it's building up in your system." The room spun. I had to grab the edge of the desk to keep from falling. Rohypnol. Arsenic. High levels. I choked out. "Toxic levels," Dr. Evans said, his voice rising. "If you had a glass of wine with dinner, you could have stopped breathing in your sleep. The arsenic explains the confusion and the nerve pain. Brenda, someone is slowly poisoning you. You need to go to the police. Right now. Do not eat or drink anything in that house." I can't," I stammered. "Not yet. If I leave now, he gets everything. He has power of attorney. He'll disappear with the money. Brenda, your life is more important than money." "It's not just the money," I said, a cold clarity washing over me. "He's done this before. I can feel it. If I run, he gets away. I need to go." I hung up before he could argue. My heart hammered a frantic rhythm against my ribs. It wasn't dementia. It wasn't menopause. It was the tea. The damn blue mug with the honey to mask the bitterness of the poison. Everything clicked into place. The fogginess, the memory loss, the deep sleeps where I couldn't be woken up. Markus wasn't taking care of me, he was pacifying me. He was keeping me sedated while he did what? Why didn't he just kill me quickly? Why the slow poisoning? Then I remembered the laptop. The warm laptop. He needed me alive for something. He needed my access, my biometrics, maybe my signature? The realization hit me with the force of a physical blow. I wasn't a wife to him. I was a piggy bank he was trying to break open without shattering the ceramic too soon. I walked into the bathroom and looked at myself in the mirror. The woman staring back was pale, gaunt, with dark circles under her eyes. But the eyes themselves, they were fierce. The fog was lifting. The anger was burning it away. He thinks I'm a weak, old woman, I thought, baring my teeth at my reflection. He thinks I'm stupid. He thinks I'm a cash cow ready for slaughter. I washed my face with cold water. I needed help. I couldn't do this alone. Markus was smart, manipulative, and clearly dangerous. If I confronted him now, he'd talk his way out of it, claiming I was hysterical, or worse, he'd finish the job right then and there. I needed evidence. I needed a lawyer. I needed Joyce. Joyce was my oldest friend, a friendship forged in the trenches of motherhood and PTA meetings 30 years ago. We had survived divorces, teenage rebellions, and bad haircuts together. But since I married Markus, I had pushed her away. Markus didn't like Joyce. "She's too loud," he'd say, wrinkling his nose. "She asks too many intrusive questions. She's jealous of your lifestyle, Brenda. She's toxic." I had believed him. I had let his poison seep into my relationships before he ever put it in my tea. I had ghosted my best friend for a man who was trying to kill me. I met her at a gritty diner on the outskirts of town, a place with sticky vinyl seats and coffee that tasted like burnt rubber, a place Markus wouldn't be caught dead in. I wore a baseball cap and oversized sunglasses. When Joyce walked in, she looked the same as always, sharp bob haircut, sensible shoes, and eyes that missed nothing. She slid into the booth opposite me, her expression guarded, arms crossed over her chest. "Well," she said, not bothering to take off her coat. "To what do I owe the honor? I haven't heard from you in 6 months, Brenda." I assumed I was officially persona non grata in the kingdom of Markus. "I'm sorry," I said, taking off my sunglasses. "Joyce, please. I'm in trouble." When she saw my face, the weight loss, the yellow tint to my skin, the terror in my eyes, her demeanor softened instantly. The hardness melted away, replaced by the fierce loyalty I remembered. She reached across the table and took my hand. Her grip was warm and solid. "Talk," she said. "And don't leave anything out." I told her everything. The memory loss, the tea, the warm laptop, the doctor's call about the Rohypnol and arsenic. I told her about the isolation, the way he cut off Sophie. By the time I finished, Joyce's face was a mask of cold fury. Joyce wasn't just a housewife, she was a retired paralegal who had worked for a top criminal defense firm for 40 years. She knew how the legal system worked, and more importantly, she knew how criminals thought. "The son of a bitch," she hissed, slamming her hand on the table, making the silverware jump. I knew it. I knew there was something slick about him. "He's too perfect. Too rehearsed." "Dr. Evans said I should go to the police," I said, my voice trembling. "He wanted to call them himself." "No," Joyce said sharply. "Not yet. Listen to me, Brenda. If you go to the police now, it's your word against his. He's the doting husband, the pillar of the community. You're the confused wife he's been telling everyone has dementia. He's been planting seeds for months, Brenda. He'll say you took the pills yourself. He'll say you're suicidal or confused. He'll spin it. Men like him always have a narrative ready. So what do I do? I can't go back there. I can't drink that tea again." "You have to," Joyce said, her voice steel. "We need proof. Concrete, undeniable proof. We need to catch him in the act. We need to know exactly what his endgame is." She dug into her oversized purse and pulled out a small, black object. It looked like a sleek USB charger. "What is that?" "Nanny cam," Joyce said. "Motion activated, night vision, records to a memory card. I bought it to spy on my neighbor's dog digging up my petunias, but it'll work for a rat like Markus." She handed it to me. "Plug this in your bedroom. Somewhere facing the bed and the desk. Tonight, you do exactly what you usually do. But do not drink that tea. Pour it out. Fake it. We need to see what he does when he thinks the lights are out." "I'm scared, Joyce." "What if he catches me?" "Good," she said, squeezing my hand so hard it hurt. "Be scared. Fear makes you alert. Use that fear. Turn it into focus. You are not the victim here, Brenda. You are the undercover agent in your own house. We are going to nail this bastard to the wall, and we are going to take him for everything he's got." I looked at the small camera in my hand. It felt heavy, like a weapon. "One more thing," Joyce said, her eyes narrowing as she tapped her fingers on the table. "Markus isn't working alone. You don't pull off a long con like this without help. A lawyer, a notary, someone at the bank. Be careful. Trust no one but me. Not the neighbors, not your regular banker. Do you think he's done this before?" "Men don't wake up at 50 and decide to become master poisoners," Joyce said grimly. "This is a skill, Brenda. A practiced routine. We're dealing with a professional." I drove home with the camera hidden in my bra, pressed against my racing heart. The fear was still there, pounding in my chest, but there was something else now, too. Hope. And a simmering rage that was starting to boil over. Markus wanted a confused, docile wife? Well, he was about to get an Oscar-worthy performance. I was going to play the part of the dying swan, all while sharpening the knife to cut his throat. That evening felt like walking onto a stage for a play where the final act involved my murder. I tried to keep my breathing steady as I prepared dinner, chopping vegetables with a knife that felt tempting to use for self-defense. Markus came home at 6 p.m., whistling a cheerful tune, carrying a bottle of red wine. He kissed my cheek, and I had to physically restrain myself from flinching away from his touch. "You look better today, darling," he said, scanning my face with those cold, analyzing eyes. "A little more color in your cheeks. Did you have a good rest?" "I feel a bit better," I lied, forcing a weak, wavering smile. "Maybe the vitamins are working." I sat in the garden for a while. "I'm sure they are," he said, loosening his tie. "I'll make us some tea later. We should get an early night. I have a big day tomorrow." The hours ticked by excruciatingly slowly. Every tick of the grandfather clock felt like a countdown. At 9 p.m., the ritual began. I sat on the sofa, watching a mindless sitcom, my hands clammy. Markus entered with the blue mug. "Here we are," he said softly. I took the mug. The steam rose up, innocent and fragrant. I pretended to sip, letting the hot liquid touch my lips but keeping my teeth clenched shut. "It's hot," I said. "Let it cool a bit," he said, turning back to the kitchen to load the dishwasher. This was my window. I had practiced this in my head a dozen times. I had a large potted fern in the corner of the living room, behind the armchair. I waited until I heard the clatter of plates, then I stood up, moved quickly to the plant, and poured the entire contents of the mug into the soil. "Sorry, Fern," I thought. "Better you than me." I sat back down, holding the empty mug, and waited. When Markus returned, I tipped the mug back, pretending to drain the last drops, making a swallowing sound. "All gone," I said, showing him the empty bottom, trying to look dopey. "Good girl," he said. The condescension in his voice made my skin crawl. "Off to bed now. You need your sleep." I went upstairs. I had plugged the spy camera charger into the outlet near the vanity earlier that afternoon. It had a perfect view of the bed and the window where the floorboards were loose. A tiny blue light blinked once and then went dark, recording. I changed into my pajamas, brushed my teeth, and climbed into bed. I arranged my body in the position I usually woke up in, on my side, facing the window. I closed my eyes. Markus came up 20 minutes later. I heard him enter the room. I slowed my breathing, making it deep and rhythmic, adding a slight snore that I knew I made when I was heavily drugged. "Brenda?" he whispered. I didn't move. "Brenda?" Louder this time. He nudged my shoulder. I stayed limp. Dead weight. Then, he did something that took every ounce of my willpower not to react to. He reached out and pinched the tender skin on the inside of my upper arm. Hard. It was a vicious, sharp pain that shot straight to my brain. It wasn't a playful pinch, it was a test of consciousness. My body wanted to jerk away. My throat wanted to scream. But I forced my muscles to remain slack. I focused on the image of the camera recording him. Let him hurt me, I thought. It's just more evidence. Out cold, he muttered to himself. Works like a charm. Stupid cow. He walked away from the bed. I heard him pacing. Then, the sound of a phone dialing. "It's me," he said. His voice was different, businesslike, cold, stripping away the American accent he usually used, replaced by something sharper, Eastern European perhaps? "She's under." "Yeah, totally out. The dosage is perfect." I upped the arsenic slightly, just to keep her confused during the day. A pause. He was listening to someone on the other end. I know. Thursday is the day. I have the tickets. No, she suspects nothing. She thinks she has dementia, for God's sake. It's pathetic, really. She trusts me implicitly. He laughed. A short, cruel bark of a laugh that chilled me to the bone. The assets are almost cleared. I just need to get the signature on the life insurance transfer. I'll use her thumbprint tonight to unlock the banking app and authorize the final wire. Then, Thursday morning, we take the drive to the cliffs. It'll be a tragic accident. Grieving husband, slippery road, faulty brakes. You know the drill. My heart felt like it had stopped. Cliffs. Thursday. That was 2 days away. He wasn't just going to poison me, he was going to throw me off a cliff and play the grieving widower again. He was going to murder me violently. Okay, love you too, he said to the person on the phone. See you in Rio. Pack the red dress. He hung up. Then came the sounds of the floorboards being pried up, the scene I described at the beginning. The box. The cash. The photos. But there was one more thing I hadn't seen in the darkness during the first encounter. After he put the box away, Markus walked over to my side of the bed. I felt him lift my limp hand. He pressed my thumb against the screen of his phone. Once. Twice. Authorized, he whispered. Goodbye, retirement fund. He dropped my hand like a piece of meat. I lay there for hours after he fell asleep, listening to the steady rhythm of his breath, realizing that the man beside me was not just a thief. He was a serial killer. And he was already planning his retirement in Rio with my money and his mistress. But he had made one fatal mistake. He thought I was asleep. And he didn't know the camera on the wall was capturing every single second of his treachery. The next morning, the house felt like a bomb site that only I could see. Markus left for work at 8 a.m., presumably to go meet his accomplice or move money around. As soon as the garage door closed, I snatched the camera from the wall outlet and called Joyce. Come over, I said. Now. Bring your laptop. And bring coffee. Joyce arrived in 10 minutes, creating a cloud of dust in my driveway. We sat at my kitchen table, the same table where I had eaten dinner with a murderer for 6 years. We plugged the SD card into Joyce's computer. Watching the footage was a form of self-torture, but we couldn't look away. The video was crisp, the audio clear. We watched Markus pinch me. Joyce gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. That sadist, she muttered. Look at his face, Brenda. He enjoyed that. We watched him make the phone call. We heard the plan about the cliffs. Thursday, Joyce noted, writing it down on a legal pad with aggressive strokes. That gives us 48 hours. Today is Tuesday. But then, the video showed something I hadn't seen because my eyes were closed. After he put the floorboards back, Markus went to the wall safe behind the painting he had bought me the night we met. He punched in the code. Wait, I said, pointing at the screen. That's not the code. The code is my birthday. Not anymore, Joyce said grimly. Look. He opened the safe and pulled out a thick stack of documents. He laid them on the dresser and took photos of each page with his phone. Joyce paused the video and zoomed in. The resolution was high enough to read the bold headers. That's your will, Joyce said, adjusting her glasses. And, oh my God, Brenda. Look at the beneficiary. The text was blurry, but legible. The entire estate, the house, the company, the investments, was left to Markus Vance, solely. Sophie was completely written out. There was a clause at the bottom, in the event of my daughter Sophie's mental instability, all assets bypass her. I never signed that. I cried, shaking. My will leaves everything to Sophie, with a trust for Markus. I never changed it. And Sophie isn't mentally unstable. He forged it, Joyce said. Or he got you to sign it when you were drugged. Remember those insurance papers he brought home last month? He probably slipped the signature page in there. We watched on. Markus pulled out another document. A life insurance policy. $5 million, Joyce read the coverage amount. Accidental death and dismemberment. Double indemnity if it's a vehicular accident. That's why he's driving me to the cliffs, I whispered, feeling like I was going to throw up. He gets double the money if I die in a car crash. $10 million. Then came the part that made Joyce freeze. In the video, Markus's phone buzzed on the dresser. He put it on speakerphone while he sorted the cash. Victor, a female voice came through the tiny speaker. It wasn't a young voice. It sounded mature, professional. The wire transfer from her retirement fund is flagged. The bank needs verbal confirmation. I'll handle it, Markus, Victor said. I have her voice recordings. I can splice it. Just keep the offshore account open. And did you deal with the daughter? My heart stopped. The daughter. Sophie is taken care of, the woman's voice said. I sent the email from Brenda's account. Sophie thinks her mother has disowned her. She won't be coming to the funeral. Good, Markus said. No loose ends. Victor, Joyce repeated. She looked at me, her face pale. His name isn't Markus. He called himself Victor. And they sabotaged your relationship with Sophie. And the woman called him Victor, I added, tears streaming down my face. They made Sophie hate me so she wouldn't look for me when I died. Who is the woman? Joyce asked. She sounds like a banker. Or a lawyer. Someone on the inside. That's how he moves the money so fast. That's how he gets the fake passports. Joyce slammed the laptop shut. This is it, Brenda. We have him on conspiracy to commit murder, fraud, identity theft, forgery. We have enough to bury him. So we go to the police now? I asked, hopeful. We could, Joyce said, tapping her chin. But if we go now, we catch him. We might miss the accomplice. We might miss the money he's already moved. And frankly, I don't want him just arrested. I want him destroyed. I want to know exactly who Victor is and how many other Brendas there have been. What do you mean? I mean, Joyce said, a dangerous glint in her eye, we know his name is Victor. We know he has a timeline. We know he's planning a trip on Thursday. Why don't we find out who Victor really is before we hand this over? If he's done this before, there are other victims. There are other families. And that woman on the phone, she's the key. How do we find out? I still have my login for the private investigator database from the law firm, Joyce grinned wickedly. I haven't used it in 5 years, but I bet they never changed the password. Let's see who Victor really is. It took Joyce 3 hours of digging, fueled by 3 pots of black coffee. I paced the living room, checking the window every 5 minutes, terrified Markus would come home early. The silence of the house felt heavy, charged with the secrets we had uncovered. Gotcha, Joyce shouted from the kitchen. I ran over, nearly tripping on the rug. On her screen was a mugshot. It was grainy, black and white. The man in the photo was younger, without the silver hair, his face fuller, but the eyes were unmistakable. They were the same cold, dead blue eyes that slept next to me every night. Meet Victor Petkoff, Joyce said, reading from the screen. Born in Chicago. Parents were immigrants. He was a mid-level manager at a bank in the 90s until he was fired for embezzlement. He did 3 years in minimum security. He told me he was an investment banker on Wall Street, I said. He told me he was an orphan. Lies, Joyce said. All lies to make you pity him. But here's where it gets dark. After he got out, he changed his name to Thomas Crown. He married a woman in Florida named Marjorie. Wealthy, older, widow. Like me, I whispered. Marjorie died in a boating accident 6 months later. No body found. Victor, Thomas, claimed the insurance and disappeared. Oh God, I covered my mouth. Then he became Arthur King. Married a woman in Arizona. She fell down the stairs. Broken neck. He inherited $2 million. And then Teresa, I said, remembering the name on the passport I saw in the box. He has a passport with the name Teresa on a document. I saw it last night. Joyce typed furiously. Teresa. Teresa. Here. Jennifer Walsh. Wait, no. Teresa is the alias he used for a victim in Seattle. Jennifer Walsh was the victim. Drowned in her bathtub. Ruled accidental. He killed them all, I said, my voice shaking uncontrollably. He marries them, drains their accounts, and kills them. He's a serial killer. He's a black widower, Joyce said, her voice filled with disgust. He targets vulnerable women, successful but lonely. He love bombs them, isolates them from their families, poisons them slowly to make them look frail and crazy, and then creates an accident. And I'm number 4, I said. Or 5. Who knows? You're the one who survives, Joyce said firmly. You're the one who ends it. She turned the laptop to me. Look at this. There's a flag on his file from the FBI. They've been trying to link these cases for years, but he changes his identity so completely, and the deaths always look like accidents. They don't have the link. They suspect a woman is helping him, a forger named Elena who worked at the same bank where he started. Elena, I realized. That's the voice on the phone. The accomplice. We are the link, Joyce said. We have the box. We have the passports. We have the video of him confessing to the timeline. We have the voice of Elena. Exactly, Joyce said. But we need to be careful. If he smells a rat, he runs. He has the cash, he has the fake IDs. If he thinks you're onto him, he'll disappear tonight, and he might decide to silence you before he goes. He won't wait for the cliffs. My phone buzzed on the table. A text from Markus. Thinking of you, darling. Picking up your favorite takeout for dinner. See you at 6 o'clock. Love you. Love you, I read out loud, feeling bile rise in my throat. He's buying Thai food while planning to throw me off a cliff. You have to play the part for 2 more nights, Joyce said, gripping my shoulders. Can you do that? Can you sleep next to him knowing what he is? Can you let him touch you? I thought about the women on the screen. Marjorie. The woman in Arizona. Jennifer in Seattle. I thought about their families, their children who never got justice. I thought about my Sophie, thinking I hated her because of a fake email. I can do it, I said. I'll be the best damn actress you've ever seen. Good, Joyce said. Because I have an idea. We don't just call the police and have them pick him up. We need to catch him in the act. We need him to confess on tape, to you, while the police are listening. We need to nail him so hard he never sees daylight again. And we need to get Elena. How? Thursday night, Joyce said. The dinner he planned? Let him think he's won. Let him think you're taking the bait. But before that, we need to secure your assets. I'm going to call a contact at the bank, someone I trust, to freeze the transfer he authorized last night. But we have to do it quietly. Wait, I said. If the transfer is frozen, won't Elena tell him? Joyce paused. That's the risk. If Elena calls him and says the money is stuck, he might panic. He might accelerate the timeline. So tonight is dangerous, I realized. If he finds out the money isn't moving, he might decide to kill me tonight to claim the insurance sooner. Then we have to be ready, Joyce said. She reached into her purse again and pulled out a small canister. Pepper spray. Keep this under your pillow. And keep the bedroom door unlocked. I'm going to park down the street tonight. If anything happens, if you flash the bedroom light twice, I'm coming in with a tire iron. But before Thursday, I had to survive Wednesday. And Wednesday night, as I would soon discover, Markus, had one more terrifying surprise in store for me. One that almost ruined everything. The name Jennifer Walsh haunted me. It wasn't just a name on a computer screen anymore, it was a ghost sitting in the room with Joyce and me. I couldn't get the image of the woman on the sailboat out of my head, her smile so carefree, so full of life, completely unaware that the man holding the camera was plotting her drowning. We need to reach out to her family, I said, pacing the length of my kitchen, the tile cold under my bare feet. If Markus killed her, her family must know something. Maybe they saw signs too. Joyce was already typing. I'm looking for next of kin. Here. A mother. Margaret Walsh, living in a nursing home just outside Seattle. Phone number listed. My hands were shaking as I dialed. It was a long shot. Why would a grieving mother talk to a stranger on a Tuesday afternoon? But as the phone rang, once, twice, 3 times, I realized I wasn't just calling for evidence. I was calling for permission. Permission to destroy the man I had loved for 6 years. Hello? A frail voice answered. Mrs. Walsh? I started, my throat tight. My name is Brenda. I think I know the man who was with your daughter, Jennifer, when she died. There was a silence so profound I thought the line had gone dead. Then, a sharp intake of breath. Thomas? You know Thomas? I know him as Markus, I said gently. Or Victor. He's my husband now. The sound that came through the phone broke my heart. It was a sob, ragged and filled with years of unresolved pain. Did he hurt you yet? He's trying to, I admitted, tears springing to my eyes. Mrs. Walsh, I need to know. How did it happen? Please. Margaret told me everything. It was like looking into a twisted mirror. Jennifer was successful, independent, a marketing executive. She met Thomas at a gallery opening. He was charming, attentive, swept her off her feet. Then came the isolation. Jennifer stopped calling. She seemed groggy when they did speak. And then, the accident. They said she fell asleep in the bathtub, Margaret wept. My Jenny was a swimmer. She swam laps every morning. She wouldn't just drown in a tub. But the autopsy showed high levels of sleeping pills. Thomas said she was stressed at work, that she was self-medicating. He cried at the funeral. He cried so hard everyone believed him. But I saw him checking his watch. I saw him looking at the house like he was calculating the square footage. Did he take anything? I asked, looking at the spot where the floorboards hid my own box of secrets. Everything, Margaret whispered. He sold the house before the headstone was even engraved. But he kept one thing. Jenny's pearl necklace. The one her grandmother gave her. He said he wanted to be buried with it one day because it reminded him of her. I never saw it again. My blood ran cold. I walked over to the mantelpiece in the living room, where a small antique clock sat, a gift Markus had given me for our 2nd anniversary. He said he found it at an estate sale. I opened the back panel. Tucked inside, wrapped in a velvet cloth I had never touched, was a string of pearls. I pulled them out, the creamy beads glowing in the afternoon sun. Mrs. Walsh, I said, my voice trembling. Does the necklace have a small diamond clasp shaped like a rose? Yes, she gasped. Yes, it does. I have it, I said. He kept it. Like a trophy. Joyce looked at me, her eyes wide. This wasn't just theft. This was the behavior of a psychopath who kept tokens of his kills. You have to get him, Margaret said, her voice suddenly strong, fierce with a mother's vengeance. For Jenny. Please. Don't let him do it again. I promise you, I said, clutching the pearls so hard they dug into my palm. I'm going to finish this. For Jennifer. And for me. I hung up and looked at Joyce. The fear that had paralyzed me for days was gone. In its place was a cold, hard resolve. I wasn't just fighting for my life anymore. I was fighting for a sisterhood of victims who couldn't fight back. He kept trophies, Joyce said, staring at the pearls. What else does he have? We spent the next hour tearing the house apart, quietly, carefully putting everything back. In his golf bag, hidden in a side pocket, we found a vintage Cartier watch. Joyce ran the serial number. It belonged to the woman in Arizona, the one who fell down the stairs. In a hollowed-out book in his office, we found a gold locket with a picture of a little boy, probably the son of the woman in Florida. He's a monster, I whispered. He collects our lives. We need to document all of this, Joyce said, snapping photos. This ties him to the other deaths. It proves premeditation. It proves a pattern. But as we worked, a thought nagged at me. The phone call last night. The accomplice. Elena. Joyce, I said. If he has an accomplice on the inside at the bank, freezing the account might not be enough. She'll warn him. We need to cut off his communication with her. We can't take his phone, Joyce argued. He'll know. No, I said, a plan forming in my mind, a plan that required me to be the actress of a lifetime. But we can make him doubt her. We can make him think she's betraying him. If criminals turn on each other, they make mistakes. How? Tonight, I said. When he comes home with the Thai food. I'm going to plant a seed. I'm going to mention that I got a strange call from the bank today about a security breach involving an employee named Elena. Joyce grinned, a shark-like smile. Paranoia. I like it. Make him think the walls are closing in from her side, not yours. It was risky. Insanely risky. But I was done playing defense. It was time to start playing games with his mind, just like he had done with mine. Wednesday evening arrived with the weight of a looming storm. The air in the house felt electrically charged. Markus came home at 6 p.m. sharp, carrying the takeout bag, looking every bit the concerned husband. But I saw the tension in his jaw. He was checking his phone constantly. How are you feeling, darling? He asked, kissing my forehead. His lips felt like ice. A little better, I said, keeping my voice weak. But something weird happened today. I saw him freeze mid-step. Weird? How? I got a call, I said, picking at a loose thread on the sofa cushion, not looking at him. From the bank. But it was confusing. They asked if I knew an employee named Elena. Markus dropped his keys on the counter. The sound echoed like a gunshot in the silent kitchen. He turned to me slowly, his face carefully neutral, but his eyes were darting. Elena? He asked. Why would they ask that? I don't know, I shrugged, feigning ignorance. They said something about an internal investigation. Some accounts being flagged for irregular activity linked to her. They asked if she had contacted me personally. I told them no, of course. I don't know any Elena. But the man on the phone sounded very serious. He said the FBI was involved. I watched the color drain from his face. It was subtle, but it was there. The mention of the FBI was the trigger. Did you get the man's name? Markus asked, his voice tight. No, I was so groggy, Markus. You know how I get. I think I hung up on him. Was that wrong? No, no, he said quickly, coming over to rub my shoulders. His hands were tense. You did the right thing. It was probably a scam call. Fishing for information. Don't worry about it. But he was worried. I could see the gears turning. He excused himself to go to the bathroom 5 minutes later. I knew exactly what he was doing. He was going to text Elena. He was going to panic. While he was gone, I moved to the kitchen. I opened the Thai food containers. I knew he wouldn't poison the food itself, he needed to control the dosage precisely, but he would put it in the tea later. Or maybe the wine. Markus came back, looking flushed. He poured us wine. To us, he said, raising his glass. And to getting through this rough patch. I touched the glass to my lips but didn't drink. Markus, about the trip tomorrow. Yes. He watched me like a hawk. I really don't think I'm up for a drive to the cliffs, I said. My vertigo has been terrible. Just standing up makes the room spin. Can't we just stay home? Have a nice dinner here? Maybe celebrate our anniversary a little early? This was the pivot. I needed him here, in the house, where Joyce and the police could ambush him. I couldn't get in a car with him. Markus frowned. This disrupted his plan. The accident was supposed to happen on the road. But then I saw a flicker of calculation in his eyes. He was adapting. If I couldn't go to the cliffs, he would have to finish it here. An overdose. A fall down the stairs. Of course, darling, he said smoothly. If you're not up to it, we stay home. I'll cook for you. We'll make it a special night right here. Thank you, I said, squeezing his hand. You're so good to me. The lie tasted like ash in my mouth. Later that night, the ritual repeated. The tea. The feigned drinking. The pouring it into the plant, which was starting to look decidedly wilted. But this time, I didn't go to sleep immediately. I waited until Markus was in the shower, and I did something reckless. I took his phone from the nightstand. I knew the passcode, he had typed it in front of me 100 times, thinking I was too drugged to notice. 1-9-8-0, his birth year? No, the year he started his first scam, probably. I opened his texts. There was a thread with E. She knows something. She got a call about you. Impossible. I covered my tracks. She mentioned the FBI. We need to move the timeline up. The transfer is stuck. Fix it. I can't fix it tonight. The system is locked. If she dies before the transfer clears, the investigation will freeze everything. Then I'll make it look like a suicide. A grieving wife who couldn't handle the dementia. It changes the narrative. I stared at the screen, my hand trembling. Suicide. That was his plan B. He wasn't going to throw me off a cliff anymore. He was going to stage a suicide. He would force-feed me the pills, maybe write a note in my handwriting. I heard the water stop in the bathroom. I quickly put the phone back, exactly angled as it was, and dove under the covers. My heart was pounding so hard I thought it would wake him up when he entered the room. But he was distracted. He paced the room for a long time. I heard him muttering to himself in that foreign language again. He was agitated. The FBI comment had rattled him. He didn't check on me as thoroughly tonight. He didn't pinch me. He just stood over the bed and whispered, "I'm sorry, Brenda. But you're becoming a liability." Liability. That's all I was. A line item on a spreadsheet that needed to be deleted. As I lay there in the dark, clutching the pepper spray Joyce had given me under my pillow, I realized that tomorrow night, Thursday, would be the longest night of my life. It was kill or be killed. And I had no intention of dying. Thursday morning broke gray and rainy, fitting for the day Markus intended to be my last. As soon as he left for his morning run, which I knew was actually a frantic call to Elena away from the house, Joyce picked me up at the end of the block. We drove straight to the police precinct. Joyce had called in a favor and gotten us a meeting with Detective Miller. He was a man Joyce respected, a no-nonsense veteran who had worked homicide for 30 years. The precinct was chaotic, phones ringing, officers bustling about, but the interrogation room we were led to was quiet and cold. Detective Miller sat across from us, a coffee stain on his tie, looking skeptical. "Mrs. Vance," he said, leaning back. "Joyce here tells me you think your husband is trying to kill you. That's a serious accusation. Usually, we need more than a gut feeling." "It's not a gut feeling," I said, placing Joyce's laptop on the metal table. "It's a business plan. We played the video." Miller watched in silence. His expression didn't change at first, but when Markus Victor started talking about the timeline and the tragic accident, Miller leaned forward. When Markus authorized the transfer with my thumbprint, Miller's jaw tightened. Then, Joyce laid out the rest. The fake passports. The photos of the dead women. The connection to Jennifer Walsh in Seattle. The toxicity report from Dr. Evans showing the arsenic and rohypnol. By the time we finished, Miller was no longer looking at me like a hysterical housewife. He was looking at me like a witness to a massacre. "Jesus," he muttered, rubbing his face. "This guy is a ghost. We've had bulletins about a wedding ring killer operating out of the Midwest, but we never had a face. He changes names, states, MOs just enough to keep the cases separate. He's planning to do it tonight," I said, my voice steady. "He switched plans. He's going to stage a suicide because I told him I couldn't go to the cliffs. He thinks the FBI is investigating his accomplice, Elena, so he's panicked. He wants to cash out and run." Miller stood up. "We need to bring him in. Now. We have probable cause with the forgery and the drugs." "No," Joyce interrupted. "If you arrest him now, he clams up. He lawyers up with the money he stole from Brenda. Elena disappears. And we only get him for fraud or attempted assault. He'll be out in 10 years. What do you want, Joyce?" Miller asked. "I want him for murder," I said. "I want him for Jennifer, and Marjorie, and the others. I want him to confess. Tonight." "You want to wear a wire?" Miller looked at me, assessing. "Mrs. Vance, this guy is dangerous. If he realizes you're recording him, and he's desperate." "He won't know," I said. "He thinks I'm a confused, dying woman. He's arrogant. That's his weakness. He thinks he's smarter than everyone." Miller hesitated, then nodded slowly. "Okay. But we do it my way. We'll have a tactical team surrounding the house. Unmarked cars. We'll have audio surveillance on you. The absolute second, he makes a move or admits to the poison, we breach. I'm not letting you get hurt. One condition," I added. "I want Elena too. Can you trace the call if he calls her?" "We're already on it," Miller said. "If he contacts her while we're listening, we can triangulate her location. We'll take down the whole network." They spent an hour prepping me. They taped a microscopic wire inside the collar of my dress. They gave me a panic word, red rose. If I said that, they would break the door down immediately. Walking out of that station, I felt heavy. I was walking back into the lion's den. But I also felt powerful. For months, Markus had been the director of my reality, telling me what was real and what wasn't. Tonight, I was taking the pen back. I was writing the ending. I drove home alone. I parked in the driveway and looked at the house. It was a beautiful house, a Tudor revival I had fallen in love with. Now, it looked like a stage set for a horror movie. I went inside. The house was quiet. I went to the kitchen and started prepping for dinner. I set the table with the good china. I lit candles. I put on the dress Markus liked, a deep emerald green that matched the poison in his soul. At 5:30 p.m., Markus came home. He was carrying a bouquet of flowers. Lilies. Funeral flowers. "Happy anniversary, Eve, darling," he said, smiling that plastic smile. "Thank you, Markus," I said, accepting the flowers. "They're beautiful." I put them in a vase. As I turned my back to him, I touched the small wire at my collar. Showtime. The atmosphere in the dining room was suffocating. The candlelight flickered, casting dancing shadows on the walls that looked too much like grasping hands. Markus had cooked. He insisted. "My specialty," he had said. "Mushroom risotto. Comfort food." I knew why he chose risotto. It was creamy, dense, perfect for hiding the gritty texture of crushed pills. He poured the wine. A vintage Cabernet. He swirled his glass, watching the red liquid coat the sides. "You seem tense, Brenda," he said, cutting into the silence. "Is it the vertigo?" "A little," I lied. "And I'm just thinking about us. About how far we've come." "We have come a long way," he agreed, taking a sip. "You know, when I met you, you were so broken. It was hard to watch. I like to think I fixed you." "Fixed me?" I asked, gripping my fork under the table. "Is that what you call it?" "I gave you purpose," he said, his ego starting to show. "I gave you someone to care for. Women like you, you need to be needed. Otherwise, you just fade away in these big, empty houses." "Women like me?" I pushed. I needed him to keep talking. I needed him to reveal his contempt. "You mean widows?" "I mean women who have more money than sense," he said, a slip of the mask. He caught himself quickly. "I mean women who are generous. Too generous." He pushed my plate toward me. "Eat, darling. It's getting cold." I looked at the risotto. It smelled delicious, rich with truffle oil. Truffle oil, another strong flavor to mask the poison. "I'm not very hungry yet," I said. "Markus, I want to talk about the future." "Let's eat first," he insisted, his voice hardening. "I made this for you." I was looking at old photos today, I continued, ignoring the food. "I found a picture of us from our wedding. And then I found something else. A picture of a woman named Jennifer." Markus froze. His fork stopped halfway to his mouth. The silence stretched, tight as a drumhead. "Jennifer?" he asked, his voice low. "I don't know a Jennifer." "She looked like she loved the water," I said, my heart hammering against the wire on my chest. "She lived in Seattle." "You were with her when she died, weren't you?" "Only you called yourself Thomas then." Markus slowly put his fork down. The charming husband facade dissolved instantly. His face went blank, his eyes dead. It was the face of the man I had seen in the moonlight. "You've been snooping," he said. It wasn't a question. "Paranoia." "I told you, it's a symptom. It's not paranoia if they're really dead, Markus." "Or should I call you Victor?" The name hit him like a physical blow. He stood up, knocking his chair back. "Who have you been talking to?" he demanded. "That bank teller? Elena?" "No," I said, standing up to meet him. "I've been talking to the ghosts, Victor." Margaret Walsh says hello. She wants her daughter's pearl necklace back. He laughed then. A cold, terrifying sound. Margaret Walsh is a senile old bat. Just like you. He walked around the table toward me. I backed up until I hit the sideboard. You think you're clever, Brenda? He sneered. You think finding a few old names changes anything? You're a sick woman. You're confused. You're going to write a note tonight, explaining how you couldn't take the illness anymore. And then you're going to eat that risotto. Every last bite. And if I don't? Then I'll force it down your throat, he said calmly, reaching into his pocket. He pulled out the syringe I had seen in the box. Or I'll use this. It's faster, but messier. I prefer the clean way. But for you? I might make an exception. Why? I asked, needing the confession for the tape. Why do you kill us? Isn't the money enough? It's never enough, he hissed, stepping closer. And frankly? I hate you. All of you. You sit in your ivory towers, spending money you didn't earn, crying over dead husbands you probably bored to death. I earn my money. I take what you waste. So you admit it, I said. You killed Jennifer. You killed Marjorie. You killed Teresa. I liberated them, he smiled, a grotesque twisting of lips. Just like I'm going to liberate you. Red Rose, I said clearly. Markus frowned. What? Red Rose, I shouted. The seconds that followed stretched into eternity. Markus lunged at me, the syringe raised like a dagger. I grabbed the heavy crystal decanter from the sideboard and swung it with all my strength. It connected with his shoulder with a sickening crunch. He roared in pain but didn't stop. He grabbed my hair, yanking my head back. You bitch, he screamed, his face inches from mine, spittle flying. You ruined everything. I clawed at his face, my nails digging into his eyes. He let go of my hair to protect his face, and I scrambled backward, grabbing the pepper spray I had taped under the dining table earlier. I sprayed it full in his face. A cloud of orange mist filled the air between us. Markus screamed, a high-pitched, animalistic sound. He fell back, clawing at his eyes, dropping the syringe. It skittered across the floor. Police! Get down! Get down! The front door exploded inward with a deafening crash. Men in tactical gear swarmed into the dining room, weapons drawn, shouting commands. Hands in the air! Do it now! Markus was on his knees, blinded, wheezing, but he was still trying to reach for the syringe on the floor. Detective Miller was there in a flash. He kicked the syringe away and tackled Markus to the ground. I heard the satisfying click of handcuffs. Victor Petkoff, you are under arrest for the attempted murder of Brenda Vance and the murders of Jennifer Walsh, Marjorie Crown, and Amanda King. Markus was thrashing, screaming obscenities. She's crazy. She attacked me. I'm the victim here. But nobody was listening. An EMT rushed over to me. Ma'am, are you injured? I'm fine, I said, breathless, watching them haul my husband off the floor. I'm absolutely fine. Miller walked over to me, holding the syringe in an evidence bag. We got it all, Mrs. Vance. Every word. The confession, the threat, the admission of identity. It's over. I looked at Markus. His eyes were red and swollen, his expensive suit ruined. He looked small. Pathetic. It's not over, I said to Miller. Not until we get Elena. Miller tapped his earpiece. We triangulated the call he made this morning. And we have her login from the bank transfer attempt. FBI agents are picking her up right now in Chicago. She was packing a bag. I sagged against the sideboard, the adrenaline finally leaving my body, replaced by a wave of exhaustion so deep I could feel it in my bones. Brenda! I turned to see Joyce running into the room, ducking under the police tape. She wrapped me in a bear hug that nearly cracked my ribs. You did it, she sobbed into my shoulder. You crazy, brave woman. You did it. I looked over Joyce's shoulder at the table. The risotto was still steaming. The wine was still breathing. A perfect dinner for a murder that didn't happen. The chaos in my dining room was absolute. The air was thick with the acrid, burning scent of pepper spray and the metallic smell of adrenaline. Officers were shouting commands, their boots heavy on the hardwood floors, creating a cacophony that should have been terrifying. But to me, it sounded like a symphony. I stood by the sideboard, clutching the crystal decanter like a shield, watching the man I had shared a bed with for 6 years being pressed into the Persian rug by 2 burly officers. Victor, no longer Markus, never again Markus, was thrashing like a wild animal caught in a snare. His eyes were swollen shut, streaming tears from the chemical burn, but his mouth was still working, spewing venom. She's crazy, he screamed, his voice cracking. She attacked me. Look at the table. She poisoned the food. I was trying to stop her from killing herself. He was still doing it. Even with handcuffs biting into his wrists, even with a SWAT team in his house, he was trying to spin the narrative. He was trying to frame me one last time. Detective Miller hauled him up. Victor's expensive suit was ruined, stained with risotto and wine, a poetic justice I couldn't help but admire. Save it for the judge, Petkoff, Miller growled. We heard everything. I prefer the clean way. Remember that line? We got it on tape. Victor froze. The struggling stopped instantly. He turned his head, blinking rapidly against the pane, trying to locate me in the room. Brenda, he rasped. The anger was gone, replaced by a chilling, desperate softness. It was the voice he used when I was sick, the voice of the concerned husband. Brenda, baby, tell them. Tell them we were role-playing. Tell them it was a misunderstanding. I can fix this. I can get us a lawyer. Don't let them take me. I stepped forward. My legs felt shaky, but my spine was steel. I walked right up to him, close enough to smell the sweat of his fear overpowering his expensive cologne. There is no us, Victor, I said, my voice surprisingly steady. And I'm not confused anymore. The fog is gone. You're making a mistake, he hissed, the mask slipping again, revealing the shark beneath. You think you're smart? You think you've won? You have no idea what you've started. You'll never find the money. It's gone. I moved it to accounts you can't touch. Without me, you're destitute. You're nothing. I'd rather be poor than dead, I said. And I'd rather be alone than sleeping next to a serial killer. Miller signaled his men. Get him out of here. As they dragged him toward the door, Victor dug his heels in. He looked back at me, his face twisting into a mask of pure, unadulterated hatred. You should have drunk the tea, Brenda, he screamed, foaming at the mouth. You should have just died. You useless, pathetic old cow. No one loves you. Sophie hates you. You're going to die alone. His screams echoed down the hallway until the heavy oak door slammed shut, cutting him off. Silence rushed back into the room, ringing in my ears. I looked at the dinner table. The candles were still flickering, casting long shadows over the poisoned risotto. The suicide note he had planned to force me to sign was likely in his jacket pocket. I sank onto a dining chair, my knees finally giving out. Joyce was there in a second, wrapping a blanket around my shoulders. He's gone, Joyce whispered, rubbing my back. He's really gone. But he wasn't fully gone. Not yet. Detective Miller walked back in, holding an evidence bag. Inside was the syringe Victor had dropped. "Mrs. Vance," Miller said gently. "We need to clear the house. Forensics needs to sweep everything. We suspect he might have planted evidence to frame you, just in case the suicide narrative didn't stick." "Planted evidence?" I asked, looking up. "We found this in his jacket." Miller held up another bag. It was a half-empty bottle of arsenic powder. "And we found a receipt in your desk drawer for the purchase of this arsenic. It's a forgery, obviously, but a good one. He was going to make it look like you bought the poison yourself." I felt a cold shiver run through me. He had thought of everything. If I had died, the police would have found that receipt. They would have found the drugs in my system. They would have ruled it a suicide, just like he planned. "He wanted to destroy my memory too," I whispered. "He didn't just want to kill me, he wanted to ruin my name." "That's what narcissists do," Joyce said grimly. "They can't just win, they have to obliterate the opponent." I stood up, pulling the blanket tighter. "Find everything, detective. Tear this house apart if you have to. I don't care about the walls or the floors. Just find every single thing he hid." That night, I didn't sleep. I sat in a hotel room with Joyce, watching the news. Local businessmen arrested in connection to multi-state homicide investigation. My husband's face, the face of the monster, was plastered on every screen. But the nightmare wasn't over. We still had to find the money. And we still had to find Elena. Because as long as she was free, Victor still had an ace up his sleeve. The next 48 hours were a blur of adrenaline and anxiety. While Victor sat in a holding cell, refusing to speak without a lawyer, the FBI was tightening the net around his accomplice. I was at the hotel, pacing the carpet, clutching my phone. We knew Elena was the key. Without her, Victor could claim the money was lost, or worse, she could drain the accounts and disappear, leaving me with nothing but a mountain of debt and a traumatized soul. "They're tracking her," Joyce said, looking up from her laptop. She had set up a makeshift command center on the hotel desk. She logged into the Cayman account an hour ago. "She's trying to liquidate." "Can they stop her?" I asked. "They're waiting for her to make a physical move," Joyce said. "They need to catch her with the device." At noon on Friday, my phone rang. It was Detective Miller. "Turn on the news, Channel 4, was all he said. I grabbed the remote. Breaking news from Chicago O'Hare International Airport. The camera showed a woman being led away in handcuffs by federal agents. She was blonde, elegant, wearing a trench coat and dark glasses, trying to look invisible but failing miserably. "Is that her?" I asked Joyce. "That's Elena Voronova," Joyce said, reading the Chiron. "Former senior VP of First National Bank. And, oh, Brenda. Look at this." Joyce pulled up a photo on her screen. It was an old company newsletter from 20 years ago. There, in a group photo of a bank retreat, stood a young Elena. And standing next to her, with his arm possessively around her waist, was a young Victor Petkoff. They've known each other for 20 years, I realized, feeling sick. She wasn't just a banker. She was his partner. His real partner. She was the one who helped him find the victims, Joyce surmised. She had access to high-net-worth client lists. She spotted the wealthy widows, the lonely heiresses. She fed him the targets. I felt a wave of nausea. My entire relationship, my marriage, my life, it was just a lead from a database. I was a target acquired by a woman in a glass office in Chicago. But Elena's arrest broke the dam. Unlike Victor, who was a hardened sociopath, Elena was a coward. Faced with federal charges of money laundering and accessory to murder, she folded within hours. Miller called us back that evening. "She's singing like a canary, Mrs. Vance. She gave us the passwords. She gave us the physical location of the server where they stored the forged documents. And she gave us the trophy room. The trophy room? I asked, my blood running cold. A storage unit in Nevada, Miller said, his voice grim. Victor kept souvenirs. Not just the pearls and the watch you found. He kept journals. Detailed logs of the projects, as he called you ladies. He rated his performance. He tracked the return on investment. I had to sit down. Am I in there? Yes, Miller said softly. You're volume 4. The reality of it was crushing. I wasn't a person to him. I was a volume in a book of death. But knowing this gave me a strange, jagged kind of strength. I wasn't just a victim anymore. I was the final chapter. I was the ending he didn't see coming. Later that night, there was a knock on the hotel door. I looked through the peephole and saw a face I had been aching to see for 6 years. Sophie. I threw the door open. My daughter stood there, rain dripping from her coat, her eyes red and swollen. She looked so much like her father. Mom, she choked out. We collapsed into each other. I held her tighter than I had ever held anything in my life. We cried until we were empty. We cried for the lost years, for the emails I didn't send, for the calls I didn't return, for the lies Victor had told her to keep her away. He told me you relapsed, Sophie sobbed into my shoulder. He told me you were drinking again and that you blamed me for Dad's death. He said if I called you, it would push you over the edge. He lied, I whispered, stroking her hair. He told me you only wanted my money. He told me you hated me. I never hated you, Sophie said, pulling back to look at me. I was terrified for you. But I didn't know how to reach you. He blocked everything. I'm so sorry, I said. I should have fought harder. I should have listened to you at the wedding. You're here now, Sophie said, wiping her eyes. And he's in a cage. That's all that matters. Having Sophie back was the final piece of armor I needed. Victor had tried to isolate me to make me weak. But now? I had Joyce. I had Sophie. I had the truth. I was stronger than I had ever been. And I was ready to face him in court. Before the trial, the district attorney asked me to come in to review the evidence. They wanted to prepare me for what the defense would try to do. Victor has hired a new lawyer, the DA, a sharp woman named Ms. Sterling, told me. A shark from New York. He's using the money he hid in a crypto wallet we missed initially. Don't worry, we froze it now, but the retainer is paid. What's their strategy? I asked. They're going to claim you're insane, Sterling said bluntly. They're going to use your medical records, the ones Victor doctored, to claim you have early-onset dementia and paranoid delusions. They'll argue that you poisoned yourself for attention and framed him. But we have the tape, I said. We have his confession. They'll claim he was role-playing, Sterling said. That it was a kinky game you two played. They'll say the Cleanway comment was out of context. It was infuriating. Even from behind bars, he was still trying to gaslight the world. I want to see the interrogation tapes, I said. I need to know what he's saying. Sterling hesitated, then nodded. She played a video file on her computer. On the screen, Victor sat in a metal chair, handcuffed to the table. He looked different, his hair was messy, his suit replaced by a jumpsuit, but the arrogance was untouched. You have nothing, Victor was saying to Detective Miller on the screen. My wife is a sick woman. I took care of her. I bathed her. I fed her. And this is the thanks I get? She's hallucinating. The arsenic? She bought it. Check the receipt. We know the receipt is fake, Victor, Miller said on the tape. And we have Elena. For the first time on the video, Victor flinched. His eyes darted to the camera. Elena is a liar, Victor spat. She's a jealous ex-girlfriend. She's trying to frame me because I married Brenda. She led us to the storage unit, Miller said calmly. We have the journals, Victor. We have the entry where you wrote, Brenda is taking longer to break than the others. Strong constitution. Might need to increase the dosage to 50 milligrams, explain that. Victor went silent. He stared at the table. Then, slowly, a smile spread across his face. A terrifying, dead-eyed smile. She was a tough one, he whispered. I'll give her that. Most of them break in a month. Brenda, she fought the fog. It was annoying. But it was also stimulating. I watched the screen, my hands clenched into fists. He was talking about killing me like it was a science experiment. Stimulating? Miller asked, disgusted. It's an art, detective, Victor said, leaning back. Taking a woman who thinks she's the center of the universe and slowly, piece by piece, turning her into a ghost in her own house. It's beautiful. I didn't just want their money. I wanted their souls. I wanted to see the light go out in their eyes while they thanked me for the tea. The video ended. The room was silent. I felt cold, but also strangely validated. He admitted it, I said. He called it an art. He did, Sterling said. But his lawyer is fighting to suppress that tape. He claims coercion. That's why your testimony is crucial, Brenda. The jury needs to see you. They need to see that you are sane, sharp, and credible. You need to be the voice that drowns him out. I will be, I promised. I'll be the loudest voice in that room. The trial began 6 months later. It was a media circus. The Black Widower headline was everywhere. People were fascinated by the handsome, charming monster and the wife who survived. The courtroom was packed every single day. I sat in the front row, flanked by Sophie and Joyce. Across the aisle sat Margaret Walsh, looking frail but determined, and families of the other victims. We formed a silent wall of grief and rage. Victor entered the courtroom every day in a suit his lawyer provided, looking like the respectable banker he pretended to be. He would smile at the jury. He would take notes. He played the part of the wrongfully accused victim perfectly. His lawyer, a man named Mr. Thorne, was brutal. When I took the stand, he came at me with everything he had. Mrs. Vance, Thorne paced in front of me. Is it true you have a history of depression since your first husband's death? I grieved, I said. That's not clinical depression. That's being human. Is it true you complained to your doctor about memory loss? Because I was being drugged, I shot back. So you say, Thorne smirked. But isn't it possible, Mrs. Vance, that you simply forgot? That you bought the arsenic to treat a rat problem and forgot? That you signed the will and forgot? Isn't it possible that this entire conspiracy is a fabrication of a decaying mind? I looked at the jury. They were watching me closely. I knew I had to stay calm. If I got angry, I looked crazy. If I cried, I looked weak. Mr. Thorne, I said, my voice ringing clear in the silence. I may have forgotten where I put my keys when I was on Rohypnol. But I did not imagine the box under the floorboards. I did not imagine the photos of dead women. And I certainly did not imagine your client standing over my bed, discussing my murder timeline with his mistress. That wasn't a hallucination. That was pure evil. Thorne paused, slightly rattled by my composure. But the turning point wasn't my testimony. It was the evidence. The prosecution brought in the box. They showed the passports. They showed the pearls found in my clock, identified by Margaret Walsh. They showed the journals. When the prosecutor read the entry about Jennifer Walsh, subject is weak. Drowning will be easy. She trusts the water, the courtroom erupted. Victor didn't flinch. He just stared ahead, bored. Then came the verdict. The jury deliberated for less than 4 hours. We find the defendant, Viktor Petkov, guilty on all counts. Guilty of 3 counts of first-degree murder. Guilty of attempted murder. Guilty of 14 counts of fraud and identity theft. The judge, a stern woman who had watched Viktor's antics with thinly veiled disgust, leaned forward. Mr. Petkov, you are a predator of the worst kind. You preyed on loneliness. You weaponized trust. You turned love into a murder weapon. You are sentenced to 3 consecutive life terms without the possibility of parole, plus an additional 60 years for financial crimes. Viktor stood up. For the first time, the mask fell completely. He didn't look at the judge. He turned around and looked at me. You're still nothing, he screamed, his face contorted into a demonic mask of rage. You're just a rich widow with no brain. I made you interesting. You should thank me. The bailiffs tackled him as he tried to lunge toward the gallery. Get off me, he howled as they dragged him out. I'm a genius. You're all ants. I am a god. I watched him go. I didn't flinch. I didn't look away. I watched until the heavy doors swallowed him up. Sophie squeezed my hand. It's over, Mom. Yes, I said, letting out a breath I felt like I had been holding for 6 years. It's finally over. It's been 2 years since the gavel fell. I sold the house. I couldn't live there anymore. Too many ghosts in the floorboards. Too many memories of tea that tasted like death. I bought a smaller place, a penthouse condo in the city with floor-to-ceiling windows and absolutely no stairs. It's bright. It's modern. It's mine. I used the money, what was recovered from Viktor's hidden accounts and the sale of the house, to start a foundation. The Jennifer Project, named after the woman who couldn't save herself. We help victims of financial abuse and romance scams. We provide legal aid, therapy, and forensic accounting services to women who think they're being duped. We teach them how to spot the red flags, the isolation, the love bombing, the rush to merge finances. Joyce is my head of operations, of course. She's tougher than any lawyer we hire. She runs the background checks on suspicious boyfriends for our clients. We call her the date doctor, but really, she's a guardian angel with a laptop. Sophie moved back from London permanently. She opened an art gallery downtown, and we have lunch every Tuesday. No more drugged tea. Just coffee, salads, and laughter. We're rebuilding our relationship, brick by brick. It's not perfect, there are still scars, still moments where she looks at me and wonders how I could have been so blind, but it's real. And real is better than perfect. I visited Viktor once. Just once. About a year into his sentence. My therapist advised against it, but I needed to do it. I needed to see him stripped of his power. He looked old. The prison life hadn't been kind to him. The silver fox charm was gone, replaced by gray, papery skin and hollow eyes. He sat behind the reinforced glass, holding the phone receiver like it weighed 1,000 pounds. Why did you come? He asked, his voice raspy. To gloat? To see if you were real, I said honestly. For a long time, I had nightmares that you were a monster under my bed. I needed to see that you're just a small, sad man in a cage. He sneered, trying to summon his old arrogance. I still own you, Brenda. You're here, aren't you? You're thinking about me. I'm here to say goodbye, I said calmly. And to tell you that I'm spending your money. I'm using it to save the women you tried to destroy. Every dollar you stole is now funding a rescue mission for your next potential victim. His face twitched. That hurt him more than the prison sentence. His legacy was being dismantled, dollar by dollar. "Are you happy?" he asked, a flicker of genuine curiosity in his eyes. "I'm free," I said. "And I'm alive. And I'm loved. That's something you will never be." I hung up the phone. He started shouting something, banging on the glass, but I didn't hear it. I walked out of the visiting room, through the heavy metal gates, and into the sunlight. I took a deep breath. The air tasted sweet. Today, I'm sitting in my new living room. The sun is setting, painting the sky in shades of purple and gold. My tea is sitting on the table, Earl Grey, hot, with a slice of lemon. No honey. I make it myself now. I pick up the mug and take a sip. It's warm and comforting. Thank you for listening to my story. I know it was dark, and I know it was terrifying, but I hope it serves as a reminder. You are stronger than you think. You are not invisible. You are not just a victim waiting to happen. You are the hero of your own life. If you ever feel that something is wrong, if you ever feel that you are disappearing in your own relationship, listen to that voice. Check the floorboards. Call your friends. Trust your gut. And never, ever let anyone serve you a drink you didn't see them pour. If this story resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share it. You never know who needs to hear this warning. Let's look out for each other. This is Brenda, signing off. Stay safe, stay strong, and keep your eyes open. And so, Brenda's story reminds us of the unyielding strength that lies dormant within us all, waiting to rise when we face life's darkest moments. It is a testament to the power of trusting your instincts, even when the world around you tries to silence them. Brenda's journey shows that courage is not the absence of fear, but the decision to act in spite of it. Her resilience and determination to reclaim her life didn't just save her, it became a beacon of hope for others trapped in similar shadows. This story also sheds light on the importance of community and connection. Isolation is often the tool of those who seek to harm, but it is through reaching out, trusting the right people, and leaning on support that we find the strength to fight back. Brenda's triumph wasn't hers alone, it was the collective strength of friendship, family, and justice that brought her through. What about you? Have you ever faced a moment where trusting your gut made all the difference? Share your thoughts in the comments or simply type good if this story inspired you to stay strong and vigilant. Let's continue to support and empower one another.